everybody. Welcome to StudioZ, a podcast of empowerment, abilities over disabilities. I'm your host, Melissa Marvel. Hey, everybody. Welcome to StudioZ. We have a returning guest again with us today, Gordon Holmes. He's a certified financial planner, and we are going to be continuing a segment on special needs planning. And today we're moving beyond the special needs trust component, whereby we're going to just talk about special needs and life care planning. So without further ado, welcome back, Gordon.
Thanks so much, Melissa. Pleased to be here.
Well, we are always thrilled to have you here, and again, are very grateful. But we're going to move on quickly because, these segments are short and the information is deep. And we'd like to share with everybody today kind of the importance of integrated planning. When you're doing special care planning, it's got to be integrated. So let's just dig into that. And can you share a little bit more about that with us?
Sure, Melissa. The life care planning, also often referred to as person-centered planning, adopts a bit of a timeline because the planning issues can vary depending upon where you're at in your journey. So for the youngest families, they may be focused on first steps and early intervention, coming to terms with what the diagnosis is and what it means, what the implications are. That will then give way to oftentimes special needs preschool, usually starting at age 3 and continuing until they're in elementary school. And during that time frame, that age 3 to 6, they may learn about something called Medicaid waivers and perhaps approach their respective agency based on their location. In the Metro Louisville area, it's often 7 counties.
That's what yes, that's exactly what I was going to ask you is where do we need to have families, contact?
Right. So for such things as the Michelle P. waiver, which is certainly the preeminent waiver in Kentucky for individuals with developmental or intellectual disabilities, there are a series of agencies statewide. And so if someone is hearing this podcast and they're not in the greater Louisville area, do not hesitate to reach out to me and we'll get you connected with the appropriate agency in your area. But typically, there's a collection of counties that each of these providers oversees or assists with. Again, in the Louisville area, we call it 7 counties. You may have heard it referred to as Centerstone, but nevertheless, they will assist families in the application process so that your child can be placed on a Medicaid waiver or waiting list for a waiver. And despite the horror stories that you may have heard, these waivers are very valuable. They're worth a lot. And though there might be a wait to start receiving waiver services, it is well worth the wait. And I suggest that families try to have time count for them instead of against them by engaging early and, again, placing their family member on the waiver waiting list. And then you're into your school years. And during those years, we might see ABA for young people on the autism spectrum or with an IEP, individual education plan, or 504. Then most, of course, are in public school, and they're receiving special education. And then about age 14, language terms such as transition start being added to the lexicon, and this is the slow ascent toward exiting their secondary education experience, which typically happens anywhere from age 18 to 22. And so starting at about age 14 or 15, discussions and conversations about what lie ahead beyond high school, as well as kind of confirmation, are we going to pursue a diploma as we complete our education experience or a certificate of completion, this type of thing.
Correct.
And then as they are approaching age 18, a discussion about guardianship. Do we? Don't we? And what are the alternatives? And parents hearing mixed messages out there, and it can really be confusing. I would say that probably 20 plus years ago, it was pretty much an assumed. You have a child with special needs, they're 18, you get guardianship.
Mm-hmm.
These days, people are rethinking that, and in some cases, instead of guardianship, where your young person has capacity, you may consider they're executing a durable power of attorney, a health care directive, this type of thing to authorize you to act on their behalf when they need help or when they're unable to do so. So those are examples of alternatives to guardianship. The guardianship is appropriate in many situations, as it has been in the past. But in Kentucky, things changed, and we talked about this in an earlier podcast, but it's worth reminding, so to speak, and that is that in most cases, no jury is required now for guardianship in Kentucky. A hearing is scheduled, you go before the judge, and the guardianship order comes from the bench. Mm-hmm. So the process has been streamlined, mm-hmm. And is not as involved as it has been in the past. Also with age 18 typically comes discussions about SSI and employment.
Yes.
And of course, those two are related. And so do we apply for SSI? Is my child eligible for it? And if they get SSI, does that mean they can't work? Or how does all this fit together? So the transition process into adulthood has a lot to do with coordinating different elements and how elements can coexist. But the good news is that there's been tremendous progress in the last 20 years with regards to employment opportunities for our young people with special needs. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing wages higher than we have in the past. And in most cases, Melissa, government benefits can coexist with these with employment. And so embracing part-time employment does not have to be at the expense of these important government benefits. And yes. Then on into the 20s, and so forth. So life planning and person-centered planning is trying to figure out where you're at in your journey, what planning is appropriate, and making it all about the individual with special needs and mustering all these various resources and pulling it together in a coordinated plan to both help them be all that they can be, to experience life to the maximum, and to make sure that in the future, when parents may fade or no longer be a part of the picture, that their quality of life does not backtrack hugely. So perhaps that gives you some perspective.
Well, what I'd like to ask is kind of stepping back into that transition phase. It's a little off topic as far as the life care, but as a parent, I want to remind folks that you are a parent of an individual with disabilities, and we talk about this transition period, and I'm tagging onto that because over the last few years, many states, I believe there's like 41 states now, have created some interest in a plan, if you will, regarding the employment first. And so as families become aware and they're going through that transition, employment is now becoming a bigger part of that conversation. And for you as a parent, my question is how did you become aware of it? And how can, I want people to know how you became aware of it, and then how we can have others become aware of it. Because mm-hmm. I hear in Kentucky, oftentimes families do not know, where do you find this information about employment transition? How do you transition to that focus so that they do learn that they can have work, they can have competitive, community, well-paid, real jobs in the community work, and they can be successful. And then we overlay that with the combination of your skill set and looking at SSI and SSDI. But what's your journey, if you don't mind just kind of talking about that real quick?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, it's rarely one source. So frequently the conversations start at school, trying to determine, again, the pathway in coming out of their secondary education experience. I strongly encourage parents to take advantage of education opportunities like the workshops that we provide.
Okay.
And if they visit my website, I think we have most of the remaining education series and workshops for 2021 posted to the website. And there's an opportunity to literally click and register. We want to make it as easy as possible to have access to this important information. There's never a charge to attend a workshop. Never, never, never. It's always free.
Very good.
And they're either in person or virtual, and most are virtual these days, which means you just walk to your kitchen table or whatever, and a couple of clicks later, you're watching an education series. They've also been recorded by many nonprofits and posted to their websites, et cetera. So I think they'll become increasingly available 24/7, 365. In addition to that, I encourage families to engage with nonprofits like Zoom Group and others. Sometimes these nonprofits are disability related, such as Down Syndrome of Louisville, FEAT, and Autism Society of Kentuckiana, and so forth. And that's because a collection of individuals with commonality in their journey sometimes makes information all the easier to transfer experiences and information. And so that's a big help. So school, nonprofits, and then special needs, special care planners like myself with educational opportunities, and then when possible, attend seminars or conferences. And sometimes there's expense to that, or being away from town or work, and it's not practical. But more of those are being done virtually these days. So that's an additional example. But probably more important than anything is to be open to help. There is help out there. Please be open to it. Help is good. And even if it just starts with taking advantage of the free consultation that we provide to anyone listening to this podcast, we want to help. It is complicated from the standpoint these are not issues that you can Google and get quick answers to, and it varies sometimes by state, where Google is kind of national, or international. So turn to any number of those options.
So again, I took us down this path, but so let's go back to the life care planning. We've hit age 18. We're having those conversations about guardianship and the SSI, SSDI coming into the equation. But in your series, in your webinars, when you're talking to families, there's 4 focus areas that you have as components of your integrated planning. Would you like to share a little bit more about those 4 focus areas?
Well, there are 4 things that are essential to planning, not only for today, but the willingness of family members to step up and be helpful. So we encourage families to embrace government agencies and benefits when possible, and try not to kick the can down the road too far. Engaging early is typically very beneficial, but at the same time, there is no such language as it's too late or the ship has sailed. Even if you have a child that's 30 years old and there's no government benefits, there's no nothing, it's too late. Practically everything in special needs from a planning perspective is fixable. Let me say that again. Practically everything is fixable, no matter where you're at in your journey, et cetera. So please do not be discouraged in the least. These days, parents with young kids are getting started early, and I'm inspired by that. But there's a lot of parents out there that have got adults with special needs in their 30s and their 40s, and they wonder if, again, that the train has passed them by. Not too late, and that's one of the things I love about the Zoom group, and I love about Special Olympics and the Louisville Council on Developmental Disabilities is the breadth of individuals with special needs and the breadth of human experience, and it's so varied, and it creates most interesting situations. But regardless of where you're at in your journey, which is the point of person-centered and life care planning, it's not too late, and there are opportunities to plan. But 4 things. All right, number 1, work to get the government benefits in place, and believe me, families going to want to know that those benefits stay in place if something happens to the parents. Those benefits can be Social Security, Medicaid waiver services, Medicare. There's usually a basket of various benefits. Number 2, family wants to know that there's somewhere to turn to pay for what the government can't or won't, because the era of deposit them in a large institutional setting and then no longer have to be concerned with them, that's the past.
Mm-hmm.
The present and the future is they're in the community, they're a part of the community, they're engaged, they're active, they're involved, etc. And with that comes responsibility to the family to do the other part, not the food, shelter, and health care perhaps, but everything else. And so having a funded special needs trust and possibly an ABLE account goes a long way in terms of assuring family members, if the parents are no longer here, that there are going to be resources to pay for what the government can't or won't. The third thing is what we call a letter of intent or a caregiver guide. And we work with families on this because it's like an owner's manual or, again, a caregiver guide for your loved one that has special needs. And we have a template to help families with this. It's so much better than a legal pad and trying to start from scratch. So it's just, it's either on paper or a fillable Word document. And you just answer questions and fill in the information. And I kid you not, a well-completed letter of intent will enable family to get up to speed in a matter of an hour or two if something happens to the parents. And what a gift.
Right.
And if you're wondering what's in a letter of intent, oh my gosh, it's their favorite meal, their favorite cookie, their favorite birthday cake, how to get them up in the morning, get them to bed at night, what type of clothing they like and how they dress and all the personal hygiene issues and Social Security contacts and who's doing case management and which waiver they're on and what nonprofits and what activities and who the direct service providers are. And I mean, it goes on and on and on. And let me tell you, when you have a conversation with family about their participating and helping, as you as a parent fade or are no longer here, having a letter of intent, huge, huge. The fourth item is team.
And the sense of having that letter of intent or that playbook, for lack of a better word, how do you engage with your loved one? I mean, it's about the comfort foods. It's about what gets their goat, what makes them laugh. It's getting all that information in that letter of intent so that experience beyond the family that is, behind, that individual can continue and to flourish and do well and have a wonderful life, given new circumstances. So, it's critical and it's vital for families to plan and to do so. I believe there are also additional benefits that families might want to be aware of. For instance, survivor benefits or, other aged parent benefits. I'm not really good at defining those terms, but if you could kind of share a little bit more about that to make people aware of those tools also being available, that would be helpful to me as well.
Okay, absolutely, Melissa, and thank you so much for bringing that up because oftentimes it seems like the whole focus is on the younger families, and like I was mentioning earlier, families that are getting a little older sometimes feel that they've been left out or, again, the train has passed them by. So a couple of things to focus on. One is adult-child benefits. So a lot of parents are unaware that the journey with SSI, Supplemental Security Income, that monthly. Okay, so sorry.
No, our phone cut off, and so all that great information you just shared, which I watched you speak, I didn't hear any of it.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank God for Tom and his editing prowess.
Exactly. That's why we have the pro.
Our forgotten hero. So sorry, Tom. We love you, buddy. Okay. All right. So tell me where we lost.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's just segue right in from the fact that there are, you were talking about. Let's start where you're saying not every family is a young family.
Okay. Great.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah. So sure. So Melissa, as we've talked about before, there are lots of families that have adult children with special needs or a disability, perhaps in their 30s, their 40s, or older. And they, with a focus on younger families, they may feel that that they've been passed by. But a couple of benefits that I do want to touch on, which kick in later in life, actually, and very much apply to parents that are getting older. One is what we call adult-child benefits. And that is a benefit that comes from Social Security that enables your adult child, in many cases, to draw off of your Social Security record. This is typically prompted by retirement, disability, or death of a parent. And those are three triggering events for disabled adult child benefits, or sometimes just called adult child benefits. And so your adult child with special needs or disability in many cases can draw off of your Social Security record without any reduction to your benefit at all. So I was just talking to a family earlier today, and we estimated that the dad might be receiving $2,500 a month in Social Security retirement benefits. And he was shocked to learn that the potential exists that his adult child with special needs, in this case, the child has bipolar and is on the autism spectrum, and has had very limited employment, now in the mid-20s. And so he was just really shocked to learn that down the road, when he starts drawing Social Security retirement, that his adult son might be able to draw as much as $1,250 in addition to the $2,500 he's drawing. So long story short, retirement decisions for parents of children with special needs is more complicated than other families. And so I coach and counsel parents all the time that are in their 50s and their 60s that are facing retirement and trying to make decisions about the implications of those decisions on their adult child with special needs. So that's one example where planning issues that come later in life, actually. In addition to that, survivor benefits you mentioned. And when a parent passes away, in most cases, the adult child with special needs takes an actual bump in benefits. And survivor benefits can really be substantial. We have families where parents have passed away and the adult children are drawing as much as $1,800 per month. You heard it right. $1,800 per month in Social Security survivor benefits as a result of the death of a parent and having a disability. And so you start to think about it and you're like, wow, $1,800 a month, and they have a part-time job, maybe they're earning $700 a month. So now we're talking $2,500 a month with little to no tax burden.
Correct.
And so forth. So I love sitting down with parents that are older because we can help coach and counsel them on these very important retirement and Social Security decisions. So that's just an example. Also, certainly, as parents get older, you start to think about their legacy and leaving funds to help the adult child with special needs. And of course, then we get back to the discussion about special needs trust and the blessing that they are for the special needs community, because parents do not have to disinherit their child with special needs and leave the funds to a sibling or someone else and hope that it works out. They can set up a special needs trust for their child with a disability and leave the funds that they want to be there to help them to that trust.
And I believe, Gordon, that's what, you can get more in depth with as far as the legal structure of that and the considerations for the families if they're speaking with you more one-on-one and, working together to create that care plan.
Absolutely. Anyone listening, a free consultation. There's never a charge for an email, a phone call, or an initial consult. We set aside an hour to an hour and a half for each family, either in person or virtual. So help is really good, and we would be delighted to assist.
As I like to end these with, Gordon, what is that one last thing that you would like to make sure the audience hears or is aware of, a takeaway today? One of the things I heard when you were speaking was like, never, just do all the homework for all the opportunities with respect to Social Security, because many people don't know that child benefit is there. And that can be quite substantial. And then as you talked about the survivor benefit, that's completely something, that's also out there that can be quite substantial as well. So just always explore, go down those avenues. But from your perspective, what's that one thing that the families need to know?
I would encourage them not to put it off. Tomorrow is promised to no one.
Correct.
And the need and the desire to plan is solely born out of love. And I would just encourage parents to, take advantage of opportunities to either receive education, like today's podcast, get a free consultation, and just start the process about learning about these things and the things that you can do to help both preserve and enhance the quality of life for your loved one for years into the future. And on that note, in most cases, these benefits can continue on even after the parents have sunsetted for decades. So decisions made today can have lasting effect for decades and decades. And in many cases, it's not just love for your child with special needs, but it's the sibling or siblings. Right. Because the better we plan, the better it is for everyone that you love.
Absolutely.
And Melissa, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share and for Zoom Group and the great nonprofits that we have to support, for support in the special needs community. It's really an honor to be a part of your program.
Well, I appreciate that. And with the conclusion of the series, we will put all this information out there and on the podcast, different airwaves. But, I hope that after this series of hearing people, our audience may feel comfortable in reaching out to you. And all that will be on StudioZ.space, as well as our social media outlets for Zoom Group. But ultimately, I hope that the families that are dealing with these challenges, after hearing this and then following up, that they actually can rest easy and sleep well at night because they know they've taken that action and they haven't waited till tomorrow, because you're right, tomorrow is not promised to anyone. So thank you, Gordon. It's been a real treat. I hope that we circle back in the future, and I wish you the best. And to our audience, thank you for listening, and have a great rest of your day.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. To see upcoming guests, check us out at StudioZ.space.